Raphael Henzer, after training in internal medicine and pulmonology, you specialized in sleep. You have worked in Stanford in the sleep clinic, and also in Montreal, in Harvard University in Boston. And then in 2006, you started the Center for Research and Investigation on Sleep in Lausanne, and this is attached to CHUV, le Centre Hospitalier Universitaire de Lausanne. With Dr. José Abarrubio, you're both the authors of this book, Je rêve de dormir, in French but also in many other languages, a great book that I highly recommend, with lots of practices and very accessible to everyone. So in today's modern and ultra-connected world, as we know, we are super stimulated. It is said that sleep is neglected. In this COVID-19 context, we can assume that higher stress, more anxiety, will be detrimental to sleep. I've also read that from all the species, human beings are the only one that is trying to control sleep. Most of the other species, without any second thought, they just sleep as per their physiology, as per the need. I'm especially interested in sleep and its connection to performance, to leadership, and the impact of sleep in the working environment. So my first question is this one. I've met people who feel quite proud that they only need 4-5 hours of sleep, and they say they can perform at their best. So what do we know today about the correlation between sleep and leadership, sleep and performance, sleep and the impact on the cognitive dimension?
So first, I think you're completely right. The sleep is an essential biological phenomenon that all the living organisms need sleep. Everybody sleeps, and it's also true that sleep is usually just a natural phenomenon that everybody just takes as it comes. And human being is the only species that is curtailing the sleep to work more, to do more things, and this is completely wrong. When we know that when we decrease the sleep duration, our brain has some dysfunction. For example, memory is clearly impaired, concentration also, and there are also other biological consequences on our body. We probably put on more weight when we don't sleep enough, so it's really important to sleep enough. Then it's true that there are differences among different persons. Some people actually need only 6 hours, others really need 9 hours. It's very rare that people need 5 or less. It's true that some leaders, for example, sometimes cannot sleep more than 5, and they can do that for a few days, but after that, you can really see the consequences on the way you can act, on the way your brain really functions. So usually we really recommend to know how much sleep you need and to respect it.
Right. And I've also read that on average, we sleep about an hour and a half less than 50 years ago. And again, if you look at an audience of leaders, we can expect that this sleep debt is probably even more acute then. So what can we think about the use of substances like coffee, alcohol, energy drinks or drugs, which in some organizations are common practice to just stay awake? So what do you think about that use to compensate the sleep debt?
Yeah, I think the best way to compensate the sleep debt is just to sleep. That's the best remedy, that's for sure. Then it's true that when you take caffeine, for example, in Coca-Cola, coffee, or Red Bull, or other highly caffeinated beverages, it may decrease the feeling of sleepiness, because it's an antagonist of the adenosine receptors, which make you feel sleepy when you haven't slept for a long time. So it's true that it can help for a while, but it's not like sleep. So you still have the sleep need. Then alcohol is a problem because it may help you fall asleep in a stressful situation, for example. If you think a lot about a problem linked to your job, it may be difficult to initiate sleep at night. And some people notice that when they have drunk a couple of drinks, alcoholic drinks, they may fall asleep much quicker. But the problem is that the sleep quality after that is really impaired. You will have much more awakenings during your sleep. Your sleep efficiency will be lower. So the global sleep will be of a lower quality than if you don't drink alcohol. And the other problem is that if 2 glasses of wine help you fall asleep, after a few days you will need 3 and 4, and this is very bad for your health, obviously.
And then you have all the side effects of
exactly,
drinking too much,
and you cannot go on like that.
dependent
It's
on drugs.
not
Okay.
possible. And the other stimulant drugs, obviously, like cocaine and amphetamine, are really discouraged.
Really?
You shouldn't
Of
do
course.
that, of course.
Yeah.
It's very bad for your brain, for your heart, and don't do that.
Too many negative impact. So the research also shows that a power nap that lasts about 20 minutes can be extremely beneficial. It is said that it improves productivity, it improves alertness. Still, in our Western societies, it is not common practice. In Asia, where I lived during a few years, it was very natural. I'm surprised that although we know it is beneficial and research proves it, it is not recommended, it is not encouraged in the companies. Have you met organizations or leaders who are actually willing to encourage people to do this? What do you think about this power nap habit in the organizations?
I think power naps, which can last maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes, are really helpful, especially if you couldn't sleep enough the night before. It can really be refreshing, you're more focused on what you're doing, you're more alert, and it should be encouraged. And you're right when you say that there are some cultural differences. In Spain, for example, people sometimes don't do only power naps, but a full sleep cycle. They go and sleep in the early afternoon for an hour and a half, for example. They even put their pajamas on, go to their own bed, and then go back to work, and it can be really beneficial. In our society, probably the small naps could be really done even at work. In Asia, it's quite well accepted, but in Northern Europe, it's still some people consider it as a weakness, and it shouldn't be like that. So I think organizations should encourage short naps, especially in early afternoon, and probably the leaders should should give the example. Okay, now I do my nap, don't disturb me for 20 minutes, and if the leader does it, probably the other will allow themselves to do it too.
Very true indeed. Like many competences, when it is exemplified at leadership level, people then feel motivated to have the same behaviors. Now, also some people, after working a lot during the week, they tend to sleep in during weekends and let themselves sleep till 10, 11 or midday. So is there a difference between a real jet lag, changing time zone, and a sort of artificial jet lag that we impose to our body when we completely change our regularity during the weekends? What do you think about that?
So I think first we shouldn't curtail our sleep during the week. That would be the best, so that we don't need to recover sleep during the weekend. And if we do irregular sleep, it can have an impact on our body. But of course, if you couldn't sleep enough, then sleep a little bit more on Saturday or Sunday morning can be helpful, but you shouldn't postpone the time at which you go to bed. So that if you postpone the time you go to bed and postpone the time you wake up, then yes, it's kind of jet lag, as if you were spending the weekend in New York and coming back to Europe after that. And this can have an impact on your rhythm, especially if naturally you tend to have a phase delay, a late sleep. Then you may go into your natural sleep that is delayed, and it will be much harder for you to fall asleep on Sunday evening. You may have insomnia, and especially very hard to wake up on Monday morning. So our advice would be to have a regular sleep schedule, that this is very, very important. And if you sleep a little bit more on Sunday morning, not to go to bed too late, so that you have a bit more hours, because otherwise you just have the same number of hours and just shift it a bit later at night.
Very clear. And we also know that some fishers or explorers or even some athletes, they train themselves to be able to sustain during a short time moments when they know they will be unable to sleep, but they want to maintain a very high level of performance. So is there something we can learn from them that we could potentially apply in our busy business life so that we could actually function very well with much fewer hours of sleep? Is it something that you would recommend?
So when we studied a few sailors who were sailing days and night with what we call a polyphasic sleep. Polyphasic sleep is that you just spend short naps spread all over the 24 hours. So this can help them keeping a certain level of wakefulness, but only in very stressful conditions where they are highly stimulated. They can be awake for 2-3 hours, then have a short nap, and so on, and maintain the reflex. The reaction time was more or less preserved during these 4 days when we studied these sailors, and the psychological tests were also quite good. But I think it's not possible to do it in the long term. And especially at night, we have a circadian rhythm that makes us sleep more at night than during the day. And if we respect that, sleep is much more efficient than just spreading it, even in periods where we're not supposed to sleep. And so my advice would be to respect as much as you can your sleep at night. If it was not long enough, do 1 or 2 more naps. But the concept of polyphasic sleep applied to daily life, I think, is an utopia.
Okay, it's an illusion.
We need a certain number of hours of sleep, and we need to respect it and try to spend them at night when your brain is ready to sleep, than just spreading it all over the 24 hours.
All right, okay. So finally, as we have many leaders listening to us, imagine that you're talking right to them. What would be your top 3 recommendations to have a restorative sleep and make sure that we feel the best way possible, fully energized?
So first, they should know themselves. We all are different sleepers. Some tend to sleep early at night and wake up early in the morning. They are very efficient in the morning. The others are very efficient at night and sleep later in the morning. So just to know our biological rhythm and try to sleep accordingly to our own rhythm. Then to know how many hours we need. For example, when you're on vacation, just see when naturally sleep comes and at what time you wake up naturally also. So it's much better to sleep according to our own rhythm and to know the duration of the sleep that we need. And this is very important. And to have regular sleep. This is the first one. Second one, to try to avoid stress, especially at night, to avoid screens, as we said before, because this can really impact on your ability to fall asleep. We know that blue light that is emitted by the screens tends to decrease the secretion of melatonin, which regulates our sleep schedule. So when we have too much exposure to lights of the screen, it will disturb our sleep if we have too much stress, especially at night. So we should really keep, for example, 2 hours before going to bed where we do something else, something very relaxing, and try not to work at this time.
So know yourself, have a regular rhythm, and then have a 2 hours preparation for sleep, where you stay, during which you stay away from screens and try to get ready to relax into sleep.
Yeah. Reading a paper book would be probably the best.
Fantastic. Thank you so much,
Thank you very
Dr.
much.
Enz. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.